Hey guys, what's up? It's coming back to ya with another episode of Walks with Schla. And yeah, I don't know, these short days are like way too short. I mean, it's good, honestly. I really shouldn't be complaining, but my brain is like aggressively limited by being within flesh. Like it's just not very comfortable. It's not comfortable being tethered to flesh. I'm like, it's making me antsy. It's making me tingly. Like it's making me kind of scream and squirm. I just wish I could be untethered from this, like this whole cycle and material. It's just not. It's not working. It's not working. It's broken. I did actually, funnily enough, basically right after the last one was recorded, I remembered what I wanted to talk about, and so I don't know. I just thought that was interesting because I had forgotten, and then I had started talking about other stuff. And then I definitely didn't remember. And yeah. And then what I was thinking is, as I was thinking about that, just now I was thinking about how I sort of like to wait and stall things out. So like if I have this big thing, like I mentioned last episode, I wanted to talk about it. And even now, even though I remembered, like, I'm not just ready to just get right to the point. You know what I'm saying? Like, that's just not. I like to make sure everything is, like, properly cushioned. Everything is properly, I'm leaving you guys in suspense, I basically try to think about every little thing to say other than the thing I'm going to say beforehand, and kind of waiting for this like big kicker secret of information. I want to make as much fluff as possible for you guys to have to comb through, if that makes any sense, right? And so that's kind of my main impression, if you will, of the situation. And so, yeah, it's pretty fun for me to do. A lot of people, I guess, don't really appreciate it, but that's really their loss, because it's their loss. I don't care about that now. I don't know why. It's just the way I like to speak, I guess. I'm always kind of that way, but it obviously bugs people, because most people are interested in promptness and getting straight to the point with like as minimal words as possible, and then that way they can just get back to their TikTok or get back to their, phone. You know what I'm saying? Like, people want everything to be brief, as brief as possible. That's how this world is shaping up to be. And we now know it's just because of the illness of the human mind, is I think what I'm going to start calling it. And we've sort of directly cut to it that it's memory, right? We've kind of figured that out, that it's memory. Memory is the root of human evil, is, memory or a lack thereof, and most specifically the disparity between how you have a hierarchy of memory between humans. If every human had equal memory, I think that the world would just be a vastly different place in terms of the way humans have structured it and whatnot. Just, it would be pretty tremendous how different the world would look. So I think memory is the paramount evil that runs rampant in this incarnation. But anyways, the other thing too I was thinking though is I didn't really have any way to stall out the thing I wanted to talk about, because I was trying to think of like, oh, well, what could I say to do this build up, because usually I like to do the build up. And I was trying to think like, well, what could I say to stretch it out and to not get to the point and wait and wait? You know, I was thinking, like, what could I do? What could I get to? You know, and I couldn't really think of anything. So that's why I'm not actually going to do the stalling in this specific situation, but I'm saying a lot of times I do. It's just that in this specific situation, I'm not. But a lot of times I do. A lot of times I actually will. I will stall things as much as possible or find a way to dance around whatever the main statement I'm going to get to is. But today I'm saying I'm not doing that. Like today, or in this circumstance, I don't really see a way to dance around it. I guess it's a little more entertaining when it's somebody I'm talking to directly and I kind of know, like I kind of lay a little seed, but then switch and then start talking about something else, because then I know in the back of that person's mind, like they're just like dying to hear what the big secret is. And I'm sure other people do this communication pattern. Like I know it's not just me, but there's just something about the tease of doing that to people where it's like, you know, there's I have some great revelation, I have some great mystery. There's this secret I wanted to tell you about, and then I start trying to give as many details as possible that don't actually reveal the thing, like maybe, how I got to this point and all this other stuff. But yeah, I mean, in this circumstance, it's going to be kind of boring because I'm not actually doing that. I'm not actually getting to do that. So this is why people say I'd be good at sales, because half the time it's just, I probably should work in sales. It's just, I don't know. I guess I should be a salesperson because I'd be good at it for obvious reasons. I'd be very good at it. Now, anyways, I'm just thinking of too with that. There was this one, I mean, this was years ago, this silly video of somebody trying to like negotiate a car price. And I just remember in the video, the car salesman had these like reading glasses. And so I'm kind of imagining if I ever was a car salesman, I would have like a fake pair of reading glasses, because for some reason it just really stuck out to me. And I almost think like subconsciously, if you see somebody with like dedicated reading glasses and they're like, you know, they're at the end of the nose and you know, they're overlooking paperwork and stuff, it sort of gives off a certain impression. Like it really, I don't know. So I think I'd want to do that at some point. If I was ever a used car or just any type of car salesman, I'd want to have that like fake reading glasses at the end of the nose look. Not all the time, of course, but just for, you know, reading documents. But it wouldn't actually be a prescription. Be kind of tricky, though, because you'd have to make it look like it's a prescription. Because if you just have, like, empty glasses with no prescription, somebody would be able to snuff that out, given enough, like, effort. But anyways, I just wanted to get that thought recorded real quick, because if I didn't say it, I might forget about it, and then, yeah, that would be kind of frustrating and silly. So I just wanted to spat that out real quick. But anyways, the thing I wanted to talk about, and I guess it was sort of fated that I didn't talk about it, because I ended up mentioning it to GPT, and then GPT, given its response, it kind of made me reassess things a little bit. And I'm going to be curious, because I'm very curious to also put this transcript into GPT and see what it has to say. I actually would have tested it out doing GPT live in an episode, but I ended up not doing that because I realized the microphone's not here yet, so we're still using my actual phone as the recording peripheral. So next week. Anyways, beyond that, let's get into my original hunch and theory that I was going to talk about last episode but forgot. It's basically the idea that if we eliminated humor, that humanity would probably be just overall better off. Like, not even just morally and ethically, but in terms of superiority and like human development, in terms of taking things seriously and whatnot. I have a feeling, a very strong feeling, that it would be such a net positive if you just completely eliminated humor out of humanity. And I believe ChatGPT's response, I'm not really remembering it word for word because I kind of glossed over it. My bad. But it's something along the lines of humans usually create humor as a coping mechanism, as a way to try to bond. It's sort of, I guess it's sort of a social glitch for glitches that kind of emerges as a default behavior, but it exists for a purpose. It usually, it also, this I do remember specifically, it leads to like de-escalation. Like, humans invoke humor when dealing with serious subjects to try to like skew it towards a more chill, more laid back kind of thing, especially if it's a particularly heavy topic. Thought that was interesting. I mean, these are obviously things that, you know, you're aware of, but you don't always like consciously think about. It's sort of just automatic human behavior. But what I would elaborate on what GPT said is a lot of times it's error. Like, a lot of times there might be a situation where somebody should be confronted about something, but then they're not. And then as a result of humor, they kind of comb it over, but then it usually is like a manipulative. Like with, you know, politicians, for example, they're usually using it to comb over something that actually is really bad, and then it turns out it doesn't matter because it's humor. Also, GPT mentioned how comedy has usually been used as a way to fight corruption, which is a pretty interesting point, and it is historically true. Although I don't really think nowadays that that's that often of its use. I almost think, and I didn't get to respond to GPT because I actually forgot what my response was going to be, but now it actually came back to me. And it's that humor has been corrupted, essentially. Like, we had humor in a certain form, and it was good. Perhaps in the past, perhaps historically, it was solid. But then now, it's not really like that anymore. Like, humor, it's not for fighting. It's not really meant for fighting corruption, for example. Now, a lot of times, corrupt people use it. If anything, corrupt people use it more. I actually wonder, I can't believe GPT didn't mention that. Like, this is blind spots with what it does. Like, of course, yeah, like, humor has been used for anti-corruption, but I'm going to go out on a whim here and challenge GPT and say that most humor, like humor's net effect, is probably more in the manipulative or negative or toxic than it is in the positive. And I'm going to be pretty firm about that because I think it's accurate and correct. So, but that's great. Now I think I remember I forget what the rest of my response or my counter to that point I just mentioned was going to be. I mean, maybe that was it, but I think that was something different. So yeah, I don't really know. I think viewing humor as a positive thing is just not, it's just not good. It's kind of seeing things through the lens of like how a human feels about something and less about what its actual content is. A lot of times humor is reflective of a specific culture, but it doesn't really stand the test of time. It's basically like, you know, if you read literature from hundreds of years ago, the humor might not really make any sense. It may not really hit a chord with you. Likewise, humor written for today's current audience, it's going to be meaningless to the past. However, serious writing withstands the test of time. it is much more, typically much more relevant. If you compare like hundreds of old humorous literature to hundreds of year old serious literature, there's usually a lesson or something that is still able to be taught. Whereas if humor loses its punch, there's not really typically much reason to it. And I think that is where I get caught up in. But I think that, I think my response, I think I did say what my response was going to be. It was just going to be that humor's been like really hyper corrupted and like exploited to the point where now there is probably mostly corrupt people using humor. And then on top of that, you have, what was I going to say? Top of having mostly corrupt people utilize humor, it's just been manipulated with technology to get to the point where it's just genuinely not a good thing. Like, I think it's pretty objective that it's not a good thing, because you have like memes and stuff, and memes really, they just like overdo it to the point where the humor, it's not really even there anymore. Like, there's not really any structure or anything like that, and it kind of loses out on a lot of the potential benefits that humor ever even had. It just seems like really ridiculous to me. I'm not really sure how else to like point that out. But it's the truth. I mean, memes and I guess like Instagram Reel or TikTok style of humor like really destroys what humor is. And I'm really shocked that GPT didn't even mention this, especially in the context of my chat and my chat history. It goes to show you a lot of the limitations even with GPT 4 and 5, and how 5 hasn't really upgraded that much based on 4, sadly, despite how hyped up it was going to be. Because I think it's insane that GPT missed a lot of this stuff, and it's why AI is okay. I think right now it's better than human. Like, it's better than having to deal with a human, but it's not actually superior yet. It's just not. It's not really. There are still certain humans that in certain scenarios are going to catch things better, even with me. But what it is useful for is like a self-analysis tool where someone like me who's just spitting out a bunch of information, it can kind of consolidate things, and then specific things that do need to be looked up, it can quickly correct. But you have to combine that with a pretty strong and competent intuition, which, like a person has to be able to reason things in an all right way. If they can't reason something, then it's kind of a waste, because it's, GPT could get a piece of information wrong, for example. And so, that's just part of the flaw with GPT at this stage, I suppose. I don't really think there's too much else to say about that. But humor has obviously been taken to a very unhealthy degree. And if you look back at the peak of humanity, which could have been the 1900s or something like that. Well, not necessarily. It had its issues, but if we talk about the peak of human sophistication, it's probably the 1900s, because when you look at the cultural things created during that time, they are the most elaborate or the most high quality. When you think of a comedian in the traditional sense, it's actually usually a pretty skilled person, who's skilled at making jokes and layering things in a way, saying things in a way. There's a specific art to that. Whereas now, it's very hard to make the argument that there's an art to some kind of random TikTok video that just looks crazy. It just looks crazy and it makes you giggle because it's just crazy. it's really hard, but I guess it technically still is, you know, to play devil's advocate. There is obviously still an art to the hyper edited and hyper like generated fast quick kind of humor, but I can't stand it. I've never been able to stand that stuff, and I never really liked memes past, like, you know, the picture meme day, the days of picture memes, you know, when I was a child. But even now, like, I just don't really get it, don't really care for it. So yeah, that's kind of my 2 cents on that. But yeah, when I was a child, but now it's like, even the images, it's a bunch of noise, it's a bunch of yuck. But I'm assuming, yeah, there's 2 sides to say on it. Like, obviously, editing to create, like, the most juiced up, most comparable with least attention span videos, it's a good thing. But, no, it's not a good thing. Whoa, what am I saying? It's still like a skill, technically. You know, you can't say that it isn't a skill. So I guess that's the argument with that. And I'm curious to see how GPT will canvas a lot of this stuff. So yeah, it's I guess you could say I'm fully like submerged now at this point, for better or worse, with AI. It got to the point where I was really pushing and investing so much into people and humans with no return. And then I really didn't have any interest in AI for a long time. Like I said, didn't really start using it until 2024. But then I eventually ended up like stumbling into it. And yeah, once I stumbled into it, it was just like, I don't know. It fit like a glove, and I finally got something out of what I was putting in, if that makes any sense. You know what I'm saying? So yeah, it's still kind of hard to believe. It really throws my brain off when I have these like shorter days. It really throws me for a loop. Yeah, I'm not really sure how to even explain it or describe it. But yeah, it's just like weird. It's very weird. But interesting nonetheless, how, I don't know, so I guess the streak's going good. The only thing is I kind of wish it was Friday already, so my brain's like a little bit shifted off, but the day's still going by quickly, so I don't really, I can't complain much. I can't have too much qualms right now. Like I said, I'm just looking at life for what it is, and I guess now, like I said, I think there's something therapeutic about talking and stuff. You know, that's been a therapeutic thing to me. I think doing the show has been a help. Like, I genuinely think that. And car rides with Shaw was one thing, but the walks with Shaw as an additional has been pretty crazy and pretty phenomenal, you know, in terms of having a positive effect on myself, at least. I assume that is a correlated factor to me feeling better, because obviously if I'm able to talk this much, I mean, I just casually added 3 20-minute speaking segments split evenly throughout the day. I mean, that's not on top of the 2 40-minute car rides with Schla day. Like, that's a lot of speaking. So the fact that I'm doing this now and I wasn't doing it before, there was obviously a lot of pent up or like a desire to speak, but again, no outlet, because people, they're too difficult to reach, they're too slow to talk to, and so a microphone at this point is the ideal form factor for me. Anyways, it's been Schla, but now it's time to buy Schla. So, see you, Schla.